In a deserted classroom, freshman Kurokiya playfully teases her tutor, Tadashi. Frustrated by her lack of progress in math, he slams a stack of papers onto the desk. When she jokingly calls him Mr. Take It Serious Tadashi, he quickly corrects her with his real name. The two recently reunited after 3 years. Kurokiya's teachers, having given up on her poor grades, suggested she get help from an honors student. She was not thrilled at first, but her mood changed when she discovered her tutor was Tadashi, an old elementary school classmate. Back then, Kurokiya actually outperformed him academically, so she finds it amusing that he is now the honors student. Since they attended different middle schools, she had no idea he was even at the same high school until now. Tadashi looks down on Kurokiya for becoming a poor student and confidently proves that he is qualified to be her tutor. Annoyed by his attitude, she decides to mess with him. Putting on a flirtatious expression, she starts sending him suggestive signals, convinced that he will quickly fall for her. Instead, Tadashi moves closer and locks eyes with her, seriously trying to get his point across. Caught off guard, Kurokiya freezes with an awkward smile and starts sweating. She immediately drops the act, tries to act normal, and jokes that he takes everything too seriously. His calm confidence leaves a strong impression on her. She can hardly believe the shy boy she knew in elementary school has become so confident. The experience overwhelms her, and she secretly starts developing feelings for him. Soon, however, her pride kicks in. She hates how easily she fell for him, and believes he should be the one chasing her. Although she wants to be with him, she also wants to be the one in control. Trying another trick, she takes his pencil case and teasingly challenges him to act like a man. Before she can finish her sentence, Tadashi immediately reaches for it, catching her off guard and making her blush. Startled, she smacks him for being so direct and emotionless. Confused, he insists that he only did what she asked. His serious attitude annoys her, but she convinces herself there will be more chances to win him over. She even imagines him someday begging her to go out with him. A flashback reveals that in elementary school, Tadashi was quiet, serious, and hard to talk to. Kurokiya encouraged him to stay confident and even gave him the nickname. Secretly, she hoped he would confess his feelings to her, but he never did. Instead, Tadashi took her words to heart. Determined to live up to the nickname and become worthy of her, he worked hard, became the top student in every class, and trained himself to stay physically fit. His real reason for agreeing to teach her is finally uncovered, as he wanted to flaunt himself to impress her, but he believes that he failed to do so. All he does is stare at her flushed wooden face gruffly, stuttering miserably, while both their hearts are racing wildly. Soon, the duo reverts to their normal selves, perfectly hiding their feelings for each other. Years of self-improvement, and the man still unlocks the buffering dialogue option. After a while, an exhausted Kurokiya stretches and suggests going out instead of continuing their boring study session. However, Tadashi scolds her for always making excuses whenever her lessons become difficult. He is genuinely frustrated by her poor academic performance, which only makes her feel worse. She thinks he is being too harsh, but Tadashi insists that he is taking her seriously as a tutor. Looking up dramatically, he sighs and says he regrets what she has become. Offended by his reaction, Kurokiya assumes he looks down on Jairus like everyone else. Refusing to feel ashamed of herself, she proudly declares that she likes who she is and prefers her lifestyle over being one of the nerdy girls he probably admires. Even so, she cannot understand why she has fallen for someone as serious and boring as Tadashi. Feeling sorry for herself, she suddenly bursts into tears. To her surprise, he calmly admits that he regrets not standing up for her when she was barred from school for bleaching her hair. He explains that he has always believed the real Kurokiya is still there beneath her flashy appearance and that she has not changed as much as people think. He even admits that he likes aspects of her current personality, but she struggles to believe him. When he reminds her that he takes everyone seriously, she is shocked to realize he has been paying attention to her all this time. Instantly regretting her assumptions about him, she becomes delighted by his praise. Unfortunately, the moment does not last long. Tadashi quickly returns to criticizing her grades, arguing that being a Jaru is no excuse for poor academic performance. Embarrassed, Kurokiya lowers her head, her face turning bright red. Tadashi watches her curiously. Suddenly, she changes her attitude and jokingly offers an apology in exchange for a kiss. As she puckers her lips, Tadashi simply places a hand over her mouth and tells her he forgives her. Completely stunned, she lets out a loud shriek and slaps both his cheeks, calling him weird. In response, Tadashi tells her to think before she speaks. Kurokiya is frustrated that another one of her attempts to fluster him has failed. Instead, she feels like she was the one caught off guard. A moment later, he gazes upward and lets out a deep sigh. Secretly, he regrets missing a rare chance to be closer to her, but he is far too reserved to admit it. As he continues sighing in the same dramatic pose, Kurokiya becomes curious about what he is really thinking. On the front, their usual bickering continues as he keeps correcting her about his name. Some couples exchange love letters. These two exchange emotional damage. Later, Kurokiya meets a girl at the station, but refuses her invitation to go out because she is focused on studying. The girl is surprised and also shocked by Kurokiya's heavy makeup and overly dressed look. Later, Kurokiya introduces her as her Gyaru friend, Mishiro Yukigino. She decided to join their study sessions. She even advised Kurokiya to lighten up her appearance. She is slightly taken aback because Mishiro is quite good at studies, and her fears are quite valid because Mishiro's flushed face tells a different story. At present, Kurokiya is thoroughly shocked when Mishiro instantly recognizes him as the one she saw addressing the entrance ceremony as the handsome topper and class rep. Staring at him dreamily, she reminds Kurokiya of how she lay in the nurse's office faking a headache just to avoid the ceremony. Staring at her with tearful, expectant eyes, Kurokiya hopes for a recording of that historical speech, but is ruthlessly. Kurokiya squeals in horror at Mishiro's bold advances towards him, but she tries to calm herself down. Later during a study session, Mishiro isn't having any trouble with the formulae. However, Kurokiya's face remains as blank as her own brain. Mishiro deliberately probes for more, trying to get his whole focus, and the whole situation is making Kurokiya quite insecure. She gets further irked by their growing proximity and is surprised because the duo just met. Instantly, she tries to shun off the negative thoughts and makes peace with the fact that smarter girls might be his preference. Meanwhile, Mishiro keeps buttering him and expresses her desire to join them again. Kurokiya becomes miserable at the thought of sharing her beloved tatapai with Mishiro and fears losing him to her. But astonishingly, he curtly restrains Mishiro from joining their next session, considering her being very much capable and intelligent. He declares teaching Kurokiya his #1 priority. There is a momentary awkward silence, and then a snicker slips out of Mishiro's lips. She teases him for being a killjoy and believes that the name Mr. Take It Serious Tadashi fits him like a glove. She pats Kurokiya's shoulder assuringly while heading out and silently signals his complete captivation towards her. Kurokiya sighs heavily and then breaks into hysterics at being sacredly chosen by him. She finally realizes Mishiro's real intention of playing matchmaker and woos her completely. Not only that, she is super hyped for taking the lead over him, mistaking his concern as a kind of confession. She completely loses her marbles as she emotionally tries to drive him towards herself. In a fit of hysteria, she even draws out her arms to give him a big bear hug. And soon the unthinkable happens, as she buries her tiny body into his gigantic one. She suddenly realizes something and screams angrily, accusing him of being too bold or out of line. Meanwhile, Mishiro is on a bus, quietly smiling to herself. It seems like she's planning something in the background, suggesting she has a hidden or mischievous idea forming. She suddenly reacts loudly, startling everyone around her. It's revealed she was actually trying to set up or test the situation involving Tadashi. She notices Tadashi only focuses on Kurokiya and doesn't show interest in her, which frustrates her. Later, Mishiro returns home, puts on her glasses, and starts writing on her tablet. She creates a digital post about the growing relationship between Tadashi and Kurokiya and publishes it online. Under her pen name Ringo Shirayuki, the post quickly gains attention and engagement from her followers. It's also revealed that Mishiro is a manga writer with over 100,000 followers who enjoys creating romance stories, and she feels satisfied after sharing her work. So the real danger here was not romance, but an author with internet access. The next day, the general ed first years get a career guidance form and are told to fill that as a formality. Mishiro is surprised to see that Kurokiya is filling that form quite diligently. In a few seconds, she excitedly tries to hand it over to the teacher, but the smart guy knows what bird brains like her have scribbled on their form. He sullenly mentions that if she has mentioned marriage as her only career choice, then she should be prepared to boldly flaunt her partner in public. Kurokiya freezes on her steps, then dejectedly settles down on her seat. The thing is that, like a typical gyaru, she only wants to marry the man of her dreams and has nothing else on her mind. Mishiro tries to encourage her to write about anything interesting she knows by putting Tadashi aside for a moment. Kurokiya knocks out her brains, but as predicted, nothing comes out of it. Mishiro teases her for being obsessed with Tadashi like a die-hard otaku. Kurokiya wonders about Tadashi's possible career choice, so Mishiro guesses that further education might be on his cards, being an honors student. It appears that she has been given a new form, but it remains as blank as her own mind. Later she confirms with Tadashi, and it turns out that Mishiro's guess was on the spot. Quite hesitantly, Kurokiya also expresses her desire to study in the college of his choice. He bluntly confronts her, which irritates Kurokiya at first. Then she admits she can be careless or bird-brained. After a pause, Tadashi gives her hope, saying things might change in 3 years. He reminds her that in elementary school she used to outperform him academically. He explains that her seriousness and confidence back then actually inspired him to become more disciplined and work harder. Kurokiya feels embarrassed remembering her arrogant younger self, but Tadashi says those words still helped shape his success. She imagines him admiring her and feels her heart race, surprised that he remembers something so old. She then decides she will attend the same college as him and work hard to reach his level. Tadashi agrees to tutor her, though he sighs at her determination. Later, Kurokiya tells Mishiro about this plan over the phone. Mishiro is shocked by how ambitious it is. Meanwhile, Tadashi privately thinks about the next 3 years of tutoring Kurokiya and college life, and surprisingly feels excited, even celebrating quietly after realizing things are going his way. The man celebrated harder over tutoring sessions than most people do over marriage proposals. After a long study session, Kurokiya gets a craving for tapioca/boba tea. Tadashi misunderstands her, thinking it means something technical, while she actually means bubble tea. They joke through the confusion, with Tadashi imagining strange or myth-like meanings for tapioca. Kurokiya teases him for being outdated and decides to take him to try it. They go to a boba tea shop. Tadashi is surprised by how popular it is, while Kurokiya jokes that its hype is already fading. Tadashi keeps overthinking the word tapioca, even imagining it like some kind of demon or strange group, which makes the situation even funnier. Interpreting in her own insane way, she terms the boba tea as a deliciously demonic drink, having its own set of followers. Tadashi doesn't like the sound of that at all, but before he protests, he is asked to avail the discount at the shop by using his phone. The man came for bubble tea and accidentally joined a fantasy religion. He is further electrocuted when she asks for a follower discount. He cannot believe that Kurokiya is a follower of a crazy cult like many in their high schools, but her happiness zips his mouth. To further dig into the matter, he decides to join the tapioca cult by asking for a discount. After they get their hands on the bubble tea, they find a park bench to enjoy it. To show himself the follower of the cult, he requests that she teach him how to drink from that sacred cup. Kurokiya begins by taking a selfie to flaunt it online. For that, she uses a specific term, Beru, and that hits him hard since he misinterprets it as a demonic name, Baal. Kurokiya is slightly astonished by his out-of-this-world reaction. He dejectedly remembers not being part of any social media platform, so this makes him ineligible for the first custom of Baal. Kurokiya becomes overwhelmed by the nonsensical stuff coming from him and quickly posts his selfie from her account. He believes that it is time to dig into the sacred cup when she points out that the photo he has taken won't do. Another round of misunderstandings happens between them, making Tadashi even more confused. Kurokiya excitedly suggests taking a joint selfie to fix the situation. She jokingly calls herself a certified Beru, acting like she's part of some made-up tapioca cult, and assures Tadashi he can join too. He still looks unsure but eventually agrees, and they take a cozy selfie together. It's revealed she has been playfully going along with his strange interpretations just to keep things fun and get closer to him. While posing, Kurokiya suddenly becomes self-conscious about her body odor and quietly moves away in embarrassment. To be on the safe side, she moves a bit apart from him, but astonishingly, he pulls her closer to him, nearly squishing her into him, claiming to please Lord Baal. Poor Kurokiya freaks out of embarrassment and tries to break free from his clutches. In his defense, he renders a hearty declaration in the name of Lord Baal. Quite tearfully, she loudly declares him a doofus, but he remains as wooden as always. Thankfully, they begin sipping their babas, and Kurokiya sighs in relief. Even Tadashi admits the drink to be heavenly. Kurokiya becomes emotional on getting this new experience, and for once, she has forgotten her appearance or body odor. Next, he expresses his desire to learn more about her interests, especially related to Gyros. A cup of sugar milk tea achieved more emotional progress than months of tutoring. With her help, he finally gets the hang of social media platforms and even downloads one on his phone. Meanwhile, her mind is bombarded with insane thoughts. However, she shuns them and helps him get added to Lime. Soon, they both text each other, exchanging messages about tapioca cults and the great day they spent together. In a mostly empty classroom, Mishiro scrolls through her phone while some boys secretly wonder whether she has a boyfriend. She is actually reading her own manga, which is inspired by watching Kurokiya and Tadashi. Later, Kurokiya and Mishiro get ready in the school restroom and, as usual, talk about Tadashi. Kurokiya mentions relationship tips she read in a magazine and even demonstrates one, which makes Mishiro cringe. She tells her not to try so hard to get Tadashi's attention because it seems unnecessary. Kurokiya then asks why Mishiro is still single, since she seems so mature when it comes to relationships. Mishiro doesn't have a clear answer and simply smiles before leaving. As she reflects on Kurokiya and Tadashi, Mishiro admires their relationship. She feels it has all the qualities of a good romance: care, support, and mutual growth. At the same time, she believes she is perfectly fine without a boyfriend. Later, while watching them study together, she notices how hard Kurokiya tries to get Tadashi to notice her. However, he remains as oblivious and focused as ever, much like a typical high school boy. In her height of desperation, Kurokiya keeps trying by making hilarious mouth poses. Finally, he shows concern about her bizarre behavior, so she nervously brings up that silly hack that she learnt from the magazine earlier. To Mishiro's immense astonishment, he actually falls for that hack and in fact seems quite impressed by her knowledge. Encouraged, she begins to smooch her wrist insanely to prove the hack. He points out a loophole in her endeavors, but she remains confident. It then dawns on her whether he had gone through the same experience or is just too chicken for that. When he doesn't respond, she begins to tease him for being a scaredy cat and mentions that fateful day when he tried to kiss her. Mishiro is stunned to learn that and is hungry for more details. She can see how Kurokiya is teasing him with playful flirtatious remarks and exaggerated kissing sounds. With a serious expression, he pulls her closer, wanting to understand exactly what she means. Kurokiya is completely shocked by his boldness and nearly bursts into tears from embarrassment, but now he has taken control of the conversation. He asks her to help him understand it properly so he can experience it for himself. A panicked Kurokiya tries to stop him from taking the joke too far, while Mishiro hopes the moment develops into something memorable. Eventually, he takes pity on her and lets her go. Seeing how exhausted and flustered she is, he continues teasing her and says he is willing to keep playing along. Mishiro secretly hopes the two will grow closer, but this time Kurokiya refuses to continue. Finally, she yells at him to stop and admits defeat. Embarrassed, she runs away, though she promises to come back the next day. A bewildered Tadashi decides to make up with her through Lime. To Mishiro's surprise, he had actually noticed the small changes in Kurokiya's appearance but simply failed to express it. The realization overwhelms Mishiro as she feels she is witnessing a genuinely sweet relationship for the first time. She rushes back to the classroom, gasping with excitement and praising the sincerity of their bond. In a burst of inspiration, she opens a notebook and begins writing furiously, determined to turn her observations into a manga. Much later, a teacher walks through the quiet hallway and hears excited cheering from a classroom. Curious, he peeks inside and finds only a sleepy-looking Mishiro. He is confused because he is certain he heard a commotion. Mishiro has a reputation as a quiet and harmless student, unlike Kurokiya, because she carefully keeps her manga writing hobby hidden from everyone around her. Back at one of the duo's study sessions, Kurokiya is quite shocked when Tadashi lets out a huge yawn. Grabbing the opportunity, she instantly offers her lap for him to rest, and to her bewilderment, he instantly accepts it. Later, she mischievously probes him about his sleepy state. Turns out the lad didn't sleep till quite late last night and then had gym class the following day. As usual, Kurokiya's imagination immediately runs wild about why he stayed up so late. He frowns in response and shows her a math worksheet that he had specially prepared for her to understand. Slightly abashed, she suggests he rest and proposes a new sleeping trick. But his eyes screw suspiciously when she decides to perform hypnosis on him. To clarify, she shows him some hypnosis audio tapes online and addresses it differently. He quickly corrects her, and she mentions how they have been effective for her own sleep treatment. So she decides to try her own relaxation technique by speaking softly to help him sleep. Tadashi is thoughtful for a moment because he has never tried anything like that. He guesses that this must be related to one of the teenage girl's latest fads. Soon, she moves very close while demonstrating the technique, making him slightly uncomfortable. It appears that she is doing it deliberately to fluster him. Next, she speaks in a calm and gentle voice. Tadashi finds himself focusing on her words and is almost convinced by her relaxation technique. The session continues as she keeps leaning closer while trying to help him relax. And to her immense surprise, a loud snore slips from his mouth as he finally dozes off. Kurokiya is deeply shocked that he falls asleep despite all her efforts. She madly slaps him and pulls his cheeks, but to her great disappointment, he doesn't respond. Finally, she gives up and goes through the math worksheet that he has prepared for her. She is touched by the effort he has made just for her ease and instantly decides to be a topper, which even he has dreamed about. Again, she whispers into his ear, but this time a note of thanks and a quick confession. Quite later, he is awake and finds Kurokiya still sitting in front of him. He praises her technique, which instantly puts him to sleep. However, he is in for another shocker when she presents him with a filled math worksheet. She proudly claims to have done it all by herself and gives all the credit to his teaching method. He mentions having a dream but refuses to spew out the details despite her repeated insistence. It is revealed that he actually heard her confession but wouldn't dare tell her that. Out of the blue, a huge yawn slips from her mouth, indicating exhaustion after staying up the whole night. These two could solve every problem instantly if they communicated like normal humans. This time he offers to use the same method on her, brightening her face. Soon, he quietly guides her through the same sleep technique while a dreamy smile appears on her face. So when he tells her to count sheep, she instantly complies with a flushed smile and a $1,000,000 husky voice. A flashback is shown in which the duo meets for the very first time as elementary schoolers. It is the same time when Kurokiya playfully teases him for his name and officially declares him Tadapai. Like always, a deadpan Tadashi has no issues with that, and bizarrely, an adult Kurokiya appears in the dream with an obvious crush on him. Suddenly, Kurokiya's eyes pop open, and it is revealed that she has been dreaming that all along. Later that day, she makes a casual remark on young boys in front of Mashiro, and what follows is a string of gibberish. Mashiro appears puzzled, so she mentions her dream where she was back in elementary school with Tadashi. Nothing starts a normal morning better than emotionally confusing childhood dreams. Next, she shows him the yearbook with Tadashi's younger version snapped, and then both girls woo over it. Next, she points at her own picture, and Mashiro cannot help noticing the drastic difference. However, all the bird-brained Kurokiya notices is how Tadashi has changed over the years. She clarifies that he has gone through a massive change from a timid version to a more compulsive one. Mashiro highlights the element of mystery there because Kurokiya actually fell for the current version, but earlier he was not the same. An awkward silence prevails between them, and to avoid the situation, Kurokiya decides to flee for the study session. It is then that she receives a message from Tadashi informing her that he will be late that day. Sitting idly, her gaze falls on a little flower trinket on her bracelet, and her mind drifts into a flashback. She recalls how she wasn't attracted to him in the first place because she was completely out of his league. But one thing that struck him was his diligence and dedication. She remembers how she used to help him with difficulties and even ended up giving him her old mechanical pencil that he took a fancy to. But the next day, he brought her something as a token of thanks. The man received one pencil and responded like he was repaying a life debt. She was really touched because she just gave him her hand-me-down for fun, but he took it so seriously. But the simple boy thought the pencil would make him smart like her and is apologetic for being a trouble to her. After much hesitation, she decided to accept the return gift and was stunned to see a delicate chain with a flower trinket. On seeing her expression, Tadashi got more jittery, being a first-timer, but he didn't know that he managed to carve a place in her heart. At present, Kurokiya still cherishes that trinket because it made her really happy being prioritized like that by someone. She realizes that from that day onwards, her eyes followed him like a curious puppy, and eventually she developed feelings for him. She is quite embarrassed to reveal the true reason for falling for him, so she chooses to be zipped. Her thoughts are interrupted by Tadashi's entry, who seems to have rushed to teach her. Soon they begin their session, and it is then she catches the same old mechanical pencil in his hand, and her heart flutters with joy. Out of the blue, he apprehensively expresses his desire to ask her something and finally wonders whether the flower trinket on her bracelet is the same one that he gave her earlier. For a moment she is dumbstruck, and her gaze sways from her wrist to his face in confusion. She smiles and affirms, and it is confirmed that he has still kept the sacred pencil with him as a lucky charm. Meanwhile, normal people would have simply moved on after elementary school. Next, he teases her for being better than her at present, and she becomes slightly offended. It is then that a strange message is received on Kurokiya's phone. The following day, she is quite perplexed to see Tadashi with another girl from the special class. Kurokiya touches the flowery trinket and shuns off the negative thoughts. But in the restroom, she suddenly retches out in the sink with Mashiro comfortingly patting her back. It turns out that the twisted scenario has made her sick in the stomach, but Mashiro has this mysterious, knowing smile on her face. During lunchtime, Tadashi is eating with his friend Ren Hamada, who is busy commenting on a manga. Ren is dying to fall in love, but always ends up as a side character. So jealousy managed to evolve into a full physical illness before lunchtime. He guesses that Tadashi might be having better luck than him since he assumes him to be more popular, but Tadashi doubts that. However, in reality, Tadashi is always surrounded by lasses impressed by his intelligence. When Ren emphasizes that, the girls clarify that they only take him as a mentor and he is not boyfriend material, as he seems more like a walking statue. The argument between Ren and Tadashi continues about how unpopular people usually behave when suddenly Kurokiya pops up in the middle, growling like a beast. A beaming Mashiro stands behind her, greeting a very puzzled Tadashi. Ren frowns at the annoying plastic girl duo and considers them big enemies of the studious population. However, even he cannot deny their magnetic appeal. A deadpan Tadashi probes them about their sudden appearance in his classroom, so they coyly put forward their lunch bags, intending to spend the time with him. During lunchtime, all the Gyarus talk about is diet and strict weight watch since Mashiro is an aspiring model. Ren is quite uncomfortable sitting with them, but it seems Tadashi is quite enjoying their company and even makes an unexpectedly teasing comment toward Kurokiya to his astonishment. The man shocked himself by accidentally developing social skills. Unable to hold back further, Kurokiya directly probes Ren about the girls flocking around Tadashi. In a hilarious, annoyed tone, he reveals that they were here to seek help from him for their upcoming English class. Kurokiya is further motivated to surpass those advanced-level girls and reveals how even she is honored to be mentored about various things by Tadashi in private. She says it in such a playful tone that both Ren and Mashiro become suspicious. It is then that Ren realizes where Tadashi is spending most of his time after school and avoids gatherings. Kurokiya is stunned to learn that, but then reaches cloud 9 on being prioritized by him over his friends. She finds herself growing closer to him, but then she pictures him going astray from his friend group, and instantly guilt strikes her. It is then that a message buzz disrupts her thoughts, and she discovers that it is from Tadashi, who has assured her that he has different timings set for her and his friends. A flushed Kurokiya stares at his face, but it is as wooden as always. Then, more magical words appear on her screen from his side, making her face glow with pride. This relationship runs entirely on text messages and emotional overreactions. Ren is observing her with great interest and is curious about that mysterious smile on her face. Meanwhile, Mashiro goes mystical, claiming to feel some special connection between them. Soon, the lunchtime is over and both the gear is set to leave. But before that, Kurokiya spreads her arms in front of him, expecting their usual. But when he remains emotionless, she deliberately pulls back, putting that special thing aside for later. Ren's frown deepens at the growing mystery between Kurokiya and Tadashi. Kurokiya notices his unease and smirks secretly for hitting the target. As Tadashi mechanically waves at her, she is triumphant to have thrown a hint that she and Tadashi are especially close. She teases him for his prolonged waving, to which he emphasizes that he always does that until she disappears from his eyes while leaving. Kurokiya's face flushes with immense pride. She giggles and fidgets nervously while leaving. When she is finally out of the room, her delighted squeal echoes through the school corridors. For a moment everyone stares at Tadashi and then lauds him in chorus. Meanwhile, Mashiro has found a new hobby in particle sensing, and everyone is drawing various conclusions regarding her personality. Somehow, a simple goodbye wave became a public declaration of war against single people. In a rattling bus, some regular girls are complaining about being harassed at their workplace, and their conversation is being overheard by a sullen Ren. At the same time, he is reading Mashiro's manga on the phone. As the bus girls laugh raucously at some inappropriate joke, he cannot help but compare the simple and sweet manga protagonists with them. In the end, he concludes that girls only appear good in comics and no real girl will give a penny to an otaku like him. Unknown to him, Mashiro is sitting nearby and gets a whiff of his mumbling, declaring him a bit shady. Ren managed to lose faith in humanity before even reaching school. On the other hand, a merry Kurokiya enters the school with fresh plans to get closer to Tadashi. As she delightfully enters his class and playfully announces her arrival, she wasn't expecting a sulky Ren standing beside him. She tries to hide her displeasure and greets him politely. It is revealed that both Ren and Tadashi were exchanging thoughts on some manga, which comes as a surprise to her. Ren snorts in sarcasm and decides to head home to study for an upcoming test. As he begins to leave, Kurokiya feels slightly guilty for giving out cold vibes. She suddenly invites him to join them in their study session. When he shows reluctance, she is all sugar and honey around him, compelling him to sit with them. During the whole session, Ren scoffs irritably while a permanent beam is pasted on Kurokiya's face. She tries to show tolerance of their friendship, but somehow, Tadashi doesn't seem very comfortable about that. Meanwhile, Ren is dying to leave this room occupied by a girl. A fourth person is secretly observing the trio, lauding Kurokiya's effort to value the boys' friendship. This study session had the emotional comfort level of a hostage negotiation. However, Mashiro still considers Ren a big obstacle in their blooming relationship. She can see how he is irritable around Kurokiya and is continuously nagging. Mashiro is certain that she doesn't want him around the beautiful duo, as he is a complete spoilsport since day one. Next, Kurokiya displays interest in the manga Tadashi had just read. She finds it quite hilarious when he mentions shoujo. When an annoyed Ren decides to leave, she quickly apologizes to him and explains that Tadashi's reading of shoujo was quite unexpected. Tadashi mentions many interesting manga posted on social media, which makes her slightly insecure about her lack of knowledge in this area. Mashiro is nearly hit by a lightning bolt when Ren declares her very own manga as his favorite. Mashiro is panic-stricken when he recommends that to both Kurokiya and Tadashi. When he explains the story to them, the duo feels that it seems quite familiar. However, even after going through a few panels, Kurokiya is unable to comprehend that the female character is actually based on her. To her astonishment, even Tadashi remains as clueless as Kurokiya, passing random remarks on the male protagonist. The author is fighting for her life while the inspiration sources remain completely unaware. Mashiro is quite annoyed when they give negative points to her work. A pang of depression strikes her as her priceless work is being scorned by the real characters on whom it is based. But Ren's voice comes as a fresh breath of air when he highly commends her work. He believes that the writer has the talent to make any character alive, and her work is quite addictive. He adds that her magic has compelled him to like her female protagonist even when he has a strong aversion to females, and he has high hopes for her. While saying all that, a beautiful smile plays on his lips. He keeps on singing hymns about the comic, and Kurokiya is enjoying every bit of it, but she notices Tadashi's odd silence and instigates him for a review. But the boys exchange telepathic conversation in which Tadashi secretly requests Ren to recommend him more rom-coms to understand Kurokiya better. Mishiro is overwhelmed with mixed emotions. The next day, the girls run into the boys, and Kurokiya melodiously requests Ren for some more comics, but he remains as sullen as ever. However, he is taken aback when Mishiro throws a smile at him and greets him. The poor lad is so shocked that he begins to stammer, so she greets him again loud and clear. She looks into his eyes playfully until he greets her back. One polite greeting was enough to send the man into full system failure mode. One fine day, Mishiro notices Kurokiya disguised under a mask and goggles, ready to hit the class. It is revealed that her face is makeup-free that day and she has forgotten the stuff at home. Mishiro cannot believe her common sense. Later, she finds her all drenched and with cracked goggles as a result of slipping on a puddle, but all she cares about is hiding her makeup-free face instead of changing clothes. Later, a concerned Tadashi stares at Kurokiya, having a full-size drawing pasted on her face, wondering how she will cope. He guesses that the drawing was made by Mishiro and is perplexed whether this is better than appearing makeup-free. At this point, the girl is treating bare skin like a classified government secret. But for her, appearing plain-faced is a serious crime. He instantly blames her ardent belief in Baal, which he has misunderstood for Beru. As usual, she is confused but doesn't show that and reasons that it has to do with not appearing attractive in front of him. Concerned, he immediately pictures the hideous three-headed Baal hiding behind a mask and guesses that maybe that's why his followers don't go barefaced. Understandingly, he decides to go with the flow. But after a while she begins to feel uncomfortable behind that gross piece of paper. On the other hand, he is eager to see her without makeup and recalls the pretty little elementary school Kurokiya. His gaze falls on the peeling tape of the poster, and he briefly considers removing it but decides to wait. But then he decides to play it safe and let her face reveal all by itself as time passes. This is because she might undergo some penalty for breaking the cult's rule. His mind is swaying to and fro between his eagerness and fear. As he has figured, the paper pulls itself and flutters away to the ground. The man is fighting for his life against a fictional demon code of conduct, but a panic-stricken Kurokiya instantly grabs it and pastes it back on her face. She freaks out on the thought of being bared ruthlessly. Surprisingly, Tadashi had already shut his eyes when the paper fell off her face, just to respect her privacy. Kurokiya is left speechless for a moment and then tells him to open his eyes. When he slowly does so, he is struck by a lightning bolt as Kurokiya's bare face is in front of him. She seems quite insecure about her looks and doesn't want to be judged. He stares at her from all angles and then declares her normal from everywhere. Kurokiya's face turns tomato red when he expresses delight in finally seeing her real self. She feels relieved to be accepted by him at all costs. But her Gyaru self strikes back as she has this urge to go behind a disguise as soon as possible. On an impulse, he watches her closely, much to her panic, as she knows her blemishes might be visible. She feels unusually self-conscious, wishing she looked more presentable. Teenagers really can turn one uncovered face into a full emotional crisis. However, Tadashi is worried about her feverish complexion and wonders whether it is some penalty exercised by Baal for violating the rules. He quickly begins to rummage through his bag to find something to end her suffering. Kurokiya is all baffled about the gibberish coming out of his mouth, but then a smile appears on her face as he pulls out his used towel. Soon, a mummified Kurokiya is trying her level best to concentrate, but his body odor from the towel distracts her.
Here I am, know it's been a while. I was in denial about my love. Here I stand.